Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a weekly podcast focusing on e-commerce topics featuring interviews with prominent people in the e-commerce space.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations by Practical E-Commerce. My name is Kerry Murdoch. Many merchants dream of building a successful e-commerce business and then selling it. Our guest today has done just that. He is Dale Traxler. His former business is Beaded Impressions, a collection of 4 separate jewelry sites. He joins us to explain the process of selling. Well, Dale, thank you for your time today.
Nice to be spending time with you today, Kerry.
Dale, you're a longtime friend of Practical E-Commerce. We're in the same state of Colorado. You've been a blogger for us for years on the Evolving eBiz blog. We've always admired your success here, and you recently sold the business that you owned with your wife for a long time. Our audience, of course, is, as you know, is other e-commerce merchants, some of which may be contemplating selling an e-commerce business at some point. You have just completed that process, and we appreciate you sharing your experiences of selling your business, Beaded Impressions, to us today.
You're welcome. Happy to give some insight, and it's always good to hear from other business owners what their thoughts are, so I'm more than happy to contribute.
Thank you so much. Just for purposes of our listeners, Dale's business was Beaded Impressions. It was a collection of 4 separate e-commerce sites. There were 2 other informational sites with that business, blog type sites. But Dale ran 4 separate stores, most recently on the NetSuite platform. Dale, just so our readers or our listeners will understand how long you owned that business, when did you acquire it and when did you sell it?
We actually acquired it in 2002, February of 2002. We just passed our 10th anniversary. We bought a very small website called thebeadstore.com that had some traction. It was in the days when there wasn't a lot of competition, and it was a very good opportunity for us to get into e-commerce at a very equitable or a fair price and see if we could grow the business. We sold it, ironically, March 1st of this year, so almost 10 years in 1 month.
Who did you sell it to?
We sold it to a gentleman who created a new entity. His intention is to grow the business substantially. He was interested in getting into e-commerce. He saw this as a platform for growth, and he made the investment. The name of the company is Tarts Enterprises.
So it's another individual that bought the business versus a larger, like a corporate type buyer.
That's correct.
Yeah, good. Did you always plan on a 10-year exit strategy, or was that something that just came along recently?
I think when we originally started, we were thinking of more of about a 7-year exit strategy. We were in that mode and operating to that path until the recession hit back in late 2007, 2008. That kind of took things off the track for us and a lot of other e-commerce businesses out there, I'm sure.
Why did you sell it?
A lot of different reasons, some of which will be familiar to other business owners, I'm sure. My wife and I like to build things, build businesses, build processes, organizations. we never envisioned ourselves running the day-to-day operations of a business once it reached a certain point. When you go from kind of a startup to something that's a little more organizationally mature, you bring in different leadership and frequently, and we were kind of at that point where we both needed a leadership change to manage a larger organization, and we also were faced with a point in our growth where we really needed to accelerate the growth again. Every company goes through different stages. We were at a stage where we felt we needed to add a lot of products to move the revenue stream up to support the cost model that we had, and that was going to require us securing some more funding for both product and additional. What we would have been doing is making another 5 to 10 year commitment to the business, and we just decided it was time to move on it rather than do that. And we'll go do our next thing, and we moved the business into somebody's hands who this was the ideal situation for him.
And I'm looking forward to discussing later in the interview what those future projects are going to be for you. Tell our listeners, give our listeners an idea, without disclosing the sales price, give our listeners an idea of, the volume that you ran through your stores there, and also describe kind of the setup of your business, the platform that you use. I mentioned that you use NetSuite, I believe, but sort of how you ran your business, the platform, and the size of your business when you sold it. We serviced about 12,000 customers, I think, last year worldwide. Many of them, what most sites would think of as retail, although we have a substantial wholesale customer base of jewelry designers who make their products and resell them exclusively, or that's how they make their primary income, I should say. We processed, in a busy month, approaching 2,000 orders, a little bit less than that on a normal month. So we had a substantial run rate of products and customers. A lot of customer loyalty built up over 10 years. We ran a small staff. We only had a few of us who were full-time, and then we had several part-time people that were based on the volume of the business. So we had a strong infrastructure, and it allowed us to leverage that and not have to have a lot of people that we were throwing at the problem. And your products were, again, tell us what type.
We sold jewelry supplies primarily. We sold beads. That was kind of the original starting point. Mm-hmm. But as the business grew, we added more and more jewelry findings and stringing materials and things like that. So our target customer makes jewelry either as a hobby, as a craft, or for professional purposes.
Mm-hmm. And you inventoried those yourself and fulfilled the orders yourself, as I recall.
That's correct. We had we bought and inventoried all of our items and did all of our own fulfillment. We ranged between 3,800 SKUs and 5,000 SKUs at various times through our life cycle.
Mm-hmm. And it's all out of Boulder, Colorado, though, where you were located. Yep. Talk to us about the process, Dale. You're good enough to share kind of what you went through here with us. Could you describe the selling process to us in terms of how was the price determined? If you got all the money up front, if there was a payout, that sort of thing.
Well, let me take you through the whole process, because I think this is one of the most useful things I can contribute.
Okay.
If anybody's considering selling their business, there's a number of things you need to think about, and hopefully you've thought about it way in advance. We actually had the thought of an exit strategy many years ago when we started the business. One of the key components that we invested in as a part of our exit strategy was a strong infrastructure. We felt that we needed to grow the business to a point where it was really, to use the term loosely, a turnkey business that we could sell to another business owner, and the processes were robust enough that other people could learn them, that the vendor relationships were established, the infrastructure could manage the CRM, had all the data necessary to support customers, vendors, and all those types of things. And that's why we invested in NetSuite. So we had been thinking about an exit strategy for a while, and we knew where we thought we could point to core valuations beyond just the pure cash flow of the business, or the seller's discretionary earnings, as some people refer to it, and a selling ratio. So my wife and I last May, or I think it was about May, we decided we were at that point of discussing, getting some more capital to dramatically expand the business, and we both said that's just not what we want to do. So let's figure out how we're going to sell this beast. And in many instances, people look to their competitors as the most logical place to do an acquisition, and we felt that was the last place we wanted to go because the valuation would be the lowest. We buy from the same people. We all know everybody, and we didn't really see that there were any vendors in our space that were looking to grow through acquisition. We've never seen it happen, and we just didn't think that was a viable alternative. So we decided to engage with a business broker, and I did some research. We went to Biz Buy Sell and all the various places, and we tried to figure out, could we sell it ourselves, or do we need some help? And we quickly decided we didn't want to do it all ourselves because the front end of the process was going to be very complex. Filtering through qualified customers, qualified buyers, evaluating their funding situation. Very awkward for the seller themselves to do all that. So we ended up picking Manny Shaw, who actually blogs for Practical E-Commerce as well, who exclusively does e-businesses. So we spent some time talking to him about his process, how he would do evaluation. We did evaluation on Veted impressions, and then I wrote. I spent the entire month of July, and I mean that literally. I did many iterations of it, writing a prospectus for the sale of our business, and also detailed operating, very, very detailed operations that we would give people as we moved them through the cycle. So I ended up with, it was probably about a 40-page prospectus and another document of similar size that went into the operational details. That became a huge differentiation through the process because we were very transparent, and we did a lot of the upfront work on paper instead of having to get involved in conversing with every single buyer who was a prospect. So we went on the market sometime in August. As far as the valuation itself, Manny did a lot of research. Since he only sells e-businesses, he has a good pulse on what the sales ratio is, in the marketplace today. And unfortunately, it's not all that great. There's somewhere between 1.5 and 3 point something percent. We ended up at the higher end of that in the process that we did. But a couple of years ago, it was 5 or 6x your discretionary earnings. It's not there right now. Hopefully, it'll come back for people who want to be selling in the future. But what we focused on was justifying our sales discretionary earnings, justifying the higher sales ratio because we had more of a turnkey business than many operations do, and so we built that up through the process.
So that was the range. There was cash flow of the business, or net income, or net cash flow of the business, and the valuations range from 1.5 to 3 times that annual cash flow is what. The 3 times was at the very top of the market when we started back in August. And as we actually went through it in the fall, it seemed like that was going to be, out of reach. And even the mid-2s were a lot of pushback. But as we were patient and we stayed with it, and we finally found the right set of buyers potentially. And we actually ended up with 3 written offers in early January from different types of buyers, different types of offers, and we had to then sort through the best buyer for us that would minimize our risk, because virtually no one will pay all cash for a business today. Any deal that we were presented with had some kind of an earn back or a carry back. So you have to evaluate what's the likelihood of their success, as well as what their price of their offer is and things like that. Do you still have a role with the business?
We're transitioning out. For a variety of reasons, we're still engaged on doing some transitional things. We expect to be we're out of the day-to-day operations pretty much now. We're doing some other projects for the new owner. We may continue to do some work in the future if he decides to do certain types of expansion. But we're drifting out of it.
There's not a lot of folks out there, Dale, that have your experience and your wife's experience. You bought a small e-commerce business in the pioneering days of e-commerce, and you grew that business and successfully exited it. You have much to offer, and I'm wondering what your next move is.
I'm not 100% sure at this point. I am evaluating a number of different things. I've done, in between things that I've done in my career, I've done a lot with strategies for startups, especially around the area of go-to-market strategies and those types of things, growth strategies. I've done that for several companies, and I enjoy doing that. I like working and learning a new market, a new business, and helping people grow. I'm actually talking to a few people I know here in Boulder, and we're considering a consulting business that would be really an e-commerce business. I don't think any business today can survive without being an e-commerce business. So it's a new kind of e-commerce businesses rather than products, but we would be offering services. So I'll kind of leave it at that for right now.
Are you able to offer to our listeners listening? I suspect we have folks listening to this that could benefit from your experience. How do they get a hold of you? Or is there a way? Is that going to be announced later? Or
Kerry, I think I'm going to be working with you as a contributing editor to Practical E-commerce. Mm-hmm. So I think as soon as we get that bit of infrastructure done, they'll be able to get a hold of me fairly easily.
Okay. I will make sure that that is available. We're excited to have you sharing your knowledge with our readers, that's for sure. So talk about advice to other merchants for a minute, Dale, as they contemplate selling a business, and address, as you discuss that for us, address the emotional issues of walking away. I don't think those are discussed enough for business owners. I suspect Beaded Impressions was a big part of your life for a decade, and now you've walked away from that, and I suspect there's some emotional toll there, and I'm wondering if you could share that with us.
Well, you get emotional pull in a number of different ways. In the process itself, you're going to engage with buyers who are going to lowball you. They're going to criticize you. They don't get it, and you don't understand why they don't get it. And you will have, unless you're very fortunate to sell it very quickly. And I think we had a relatively quick sales cycle. We were effectively 6 months to an offer. Longer than that, but along that road, there's a lot of people we talked to, and Manny did a great job of screening out most of the non-qualified buyers, but you still end up talking to some people that kind of waste your time, and you have to be willing to do that and fight through it and grit through it. When you finally get offers, that's when it really starts to become emotional, because they have a strong feeling about what your cash flow really is, or they may have a strong feeling about why they shouldn't pay you the asking ratio that you're looking for. And it can get pretty emotional. I mean, we did. It was a very stressful 3-week period it was actually 4 weeks as we sorted through these various offers. They've got to go get financing. You're not sure they're going to get the financing. And then you're kind of trying to bring everybody to the finish line at the same time. So if you ever get into the sales process and you're fortunate enough to get multiple offers, it's extremely stressful, and I think it is anyway. And then you get into the whole detachment part. We were fortunate enough to have a business that the buyer hired our employees. One of the buyers was not going to, so I was faced with having to terminate employees who'd been with me for many, many years and figure out how to compensate them fairly and things like that. We ended up not having to do that, but it's certainly a real issue that you may be confronted with as you go through this process. So there's a lot of things you're not thinking about when you decide to sell until you get to a certain gate and you go, uh-oh, we haven't thought about this. And then even in the separation, we were fortunate enough, John, the new buyer, he's very, very good to work with. He's smart. He has big, ambitious plans, and he's taken a lot of the things we put in our selling strategy to heart in terms of the growth strategies that we proposed he might want to pursue and things like that. So employees embrace that, but everybody doesn't do that. Again, one of our buyers had no interest in that. That was not anything he cared about. He was going to do his thing his way, and frankly, that's one of the reasons we went a different direction than we did, probably, among other things. But now that we're out of the business, that's very strange. Having a new owner come in, work with employees, start to reorganize the company, hire new people, and so we're having to. I moved out just so I wasn't in the day-to-day operations. I'm doing some other things to help train people and whatnot in marketing activities and so forth, and helping him hire new contractors to do some of the things he doesn't want to do. So I'm not having to be in the day-to-day. Cynthia, my wife, is more in the day-to-day because she's helping the new buyer, which is the primary function she had, learn things. And we need to be careful not to criticize and say it's touchy. So it's best to pull yourself out fairly quickly if you can.
We have just another minute or so left, Dale. Anything else for our listeners as it involves selling your business?
I alluded to it earlier, and I'll probably end up writing something about this at some point for you guys, but I think it's really important that anybody that is in an e-commerce business considers an exit strategy, because whether it's giving it to your family or staying in it forever or selling it, or there may be circumstances where the model dynamics change and you need to do it. If you're thinking about that from the get-go, you've got a basis for building your business and selling it to someone. So it's important to consider that early on in the process. And I think had we not done that, had we not invested in that, had we not had all the replicable processes and things that we had, we would have not gotten the value that we sought for Beaded Impressions when we sold it.
Okay. Well, as you alluded to there, Dale, we are looking forward to reading what you have to say, as our listeners and readers will, as you transition to the next part of your career. And we're fortunate that you're going to be one of our contributing editors. We're very much looking forward to it. For purposes of our listeners, we've been visiting with Dale Traxler. Dale and his wife Cynthia are the past owners of Beaded Impressions. If you care to look at the sites that we've been discussing that Dale built up and then sold, that's beadedimpressions.com. It's beadedimpressions.com. That will take you to the 4 stores that he ran. And Dale Traxler, the past owner of Beaded Impressions. We want to thank you for your time today, sir.
Oh, you're welcome, Kerry. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all the time we have for this week's e-commerce conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. Please tune in next week for another new episode.